Trap squad, 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 trap squad. Hey, clickbaity political. Yeah, thirst trap, trap squad, squirrel squad. Our mission is critical to speak the truth to the masses. Yeah. We here for the fight. We ain't started, but we here to finish it. Sick and tired of seeing the privilege. Take advantage of the weak and the innocent. So we let our voice be heard. Every single weeknight. Unapologetic. Black people, despite this white supremacist system that we live through on a daily, we still throwing up those acorns cause we represent clickbaity. Trap squad, trap squad, trap squad, let me hear ya. Trap squad, trap squad, throw those squirrels up if you with it. Trap squad, trap squad, yeah I see you, yeah I see you. Trap squad, trap squad, trap squad, thirst trap, trap squad, trap squad, trap squad, let me hear ya. Trap squad, trap squad. Throw those squirrels up if you with it. Trap squad, trap squad. Yeah, I see you, yeah, I see you. Trap squad, trap squad. Trap squad, thirst trap.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I have a question. We are starting today's show, Clickbaity, Political Thirst Trap. Below me, we have Mr. Marcus Farrell.
What's happening? How y'all doing? Welcome to Thursday.
To my left, we have Mondale Robinson.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? Mondale Robinson, Black Male Voter Project. What up, though?
Dr. Jason Johnson with MSNBC and the Brio and Morgan State University. But here's my question. This has been on my mind all day. And I have to ask you guys because I do not know the answer to this. Who the heck is Lana Del Rey? Do you guys know who this person is? That this has been this whole argument on the interwebs today? I don't know who Lana Del Rey is. Do either of you know who this person is? Can either of you name a Lana Del Rey song?
I thought it was a soap.
That's Oil of Olay.
No, I don't.
Mondale, do you know who Lana Del Rey is?
I refuse to get caught up in Instagram culture and celebrityism. So the answer to your question is I do not know.
You know what? That's always the caveat for people who know about trashy stuff and don't want to admit it. It's like, I read Playboy for the articles, and then there are always the people who can tell you.
Well, here's the thing, though. Just like you know the name. That's why it's in my. I mean, I read some articles today, and the name was a part of it. But for me to pretend that I know anything about the situation is a lie. I know nothing, bro.
Yeah, I didn't have a clue. I just saw a whole bunch of people talking about Lana Del Rey and something about like privilege and a white woman who was complaining about privilege and talking about women of color. I had no idea. I just figured you to inform Black people would actually be able to tell me. But I was mistaken.
I'm gonna Playboy for the pictures, and I should need to pay more attention to.
Although, but Playboy has great articles. Like, let's be serious.
They have amazing.
Well, they used to back in the day.
Right.
Actually, and honestly, like objectively speaking, do they have? Is that a print magazine anymore? Is there actually a print Playboy magazine?
Yes, there is. But you have, like, they have the little barriers up behind the cash register in some stores. They have the barriers up where you can only see the top, right? And I think that's like few and far between. But they haven't stopped it, because we would have heard a big thing about the.
Yeah, I was thinking like, because I mean, like Ebony stopped, right? Like 2 or 3 years ago, they stopped the print edition. The source print edition has like not existed in forever. I mean, it was infrequent. I mean, but yeah, you're right. If Playboy actually stopped making a print edition magazine, it would be news. Which actually is a very important topic that I'm going to hit us with when we start off before we go into our numerous and sundry topics of the day. And I think this is an important one. This is not one that my colleagues expect, and that's why I'm going to toss it at them. Today in the news, it broke that The Atlantic, which is really one of the most dynamic and impressive news magazines out there, is laying off 68 people. And whether or not you happen to be a fan of The Atlantic, it is part of a larger trend of layoffs that we have been seeing in news outlets, from BuzzFeed to the Washington Post to the New York Times, even before coronavirus. And now with coronavirus, things are worse. It will soon start to dig into the few Black news outlets that we have. A lot of magazines today, like Essence Magazine, for example, Essence actually loses money on the magazine. Y'all know how Essence actually makes their money?
The festival?
Bingo. Exactly. It's the festival. Essence makes their money from the Essence Fest. That's their big event. It's one of the biggest events of the year. And in fact, a lot of magazines now, they make their money not from the website, not from the print magazine, but by putting on festivals, the Aspen Festival, the Food Festival, political festivals, et cetera, et cetera. And now with those things gone, a lot of these places are going to suffer and they're laying people off. So before we even get to anything else, I just want to ask you guys, what fears do you have about what could happen to our ability as a Black community to cover the issues of importance that we have if coronavirus is leading to massive layoffs and pullbacks in the few media outlets that we have?
We have to take advantage. We have to take advantage of what we're already doing, and that's digital space, right? What we're doing right now is the only thing that we can do to actually pass information along. Shout out to everybody who watches Clickbaity Political Thirst Trap. A couple of people have inboxed me and said, yo, thank you for doing what you do, because I would have absolutely no idea what's going on unless you guys talk to us about those things. So, I mean, it is what it is. Look, layoffs are happening right now. COVID-19 is doing it. I don't expect anybody, because when I start seeing Karens and middle class white women lose their jobs and actually go to Twitter and go to public spaces and say, hey, this is really messed up, we need to do something about it. Now, luckily, they get their COVID relief funds a little bit faster than Wells Fargo gives out Black people their funds. It is what it is.
Magic Johnson.
Right. But shout out to Magic Johnson, but it is what it is, right? So we have to just get used to another space and adjust as Americans. And if we're Black Americans, then we have to move. I mean, Black Twitter is a thing. Black digital space is a thing. And we need to just figure out how we monetize it a little bit better. I'm hoping that out of this comes some kind of Black version of a social media platform that we all consistently use and actually is monetized to help out our own people. So it's expected. We have to adjust, but we've been doing that for over 400 years in America.
So for me, I this is actually not directly linked to, but it's part of a conversation that Marcus and I had earlier about something, and I'm gonna speak on that. But before I say something, and people shouldn't misunderstand what Marcus is saying about monetizing black information, the way we give information. I think what Marcus can speak for himself, as he always do. I think what Marcus is trying to say, that we have to be able to sustain our own ability to receive and give information. I think Political Thirst Trap is a space like that. We don't have hundreds of thousands of people viewing us, or tens of thousands yet, although we have had 36,000 people watch our shows. This is our 14th episode, so also, but in all honesty, I feel like as long as we have this space, and then there are other bright Black people that are, posting videos, Black with No Chases on at lunchtime every day. So I mean, I feel like there's ways to share the message. Also, I'm saddened by Atlantic. I'm saddened by a lot of Black outlets not getting pushed or supported in the way that they should. Now back to the conversation Marcus and I had earlier. Marcus and I were discussing, should we bring graphics and more flashy tools to Clickbaity? And my thing is, I'm a person who is upset that TV, when it was first created, entertainment beat out education. So my idea is, Political Thirst Trap is about the information we give. That which makes your mouth water is not the people you see or anything you see. It's about the knowledge you get here with a Black tint to it, without the corporatization of what we can and can't say. So I feel like as long as we are doing this the way we're doing it, people should love us for who we are and the information that they're getting. Also, I told Marcus this, and I want to say it again. My favorite anchor of all time is Walter Cronkite, and it wasn't because he had a bunch of graphics. It was because he gave information in a way that was real, and I think people resonated with that. And I think people was good with Walter Cronkite during calm times and also during times of war. And I feel like we offer that to the very few people that click on, and hopefully the forever growing audience. So yeah, I mean, it's sad that Atlantic is laying people off, and it's definitely going to hit us. COVID's going to hit us harder than white people. Marcus said it on Tuesday. America get a cold, we get a flu. In this case, America lose anchor, we lose two outlets. So the good thing is we have digital, hopefully that's sustaining us.
I want to add something to this. I'll give you a second, Marcus. And I want to add, when you talk about support, I think it's really important that people always remember what support entails. Support is we're in a beautiful space now where support doesn't always have to mean money. Remember, there was a time in all of our lives, we're all old enough to remember a time where just giving money to something you believed in was seen as weak, or not as, oh, all you do is give cash. We are literally in a time where attention is monetized. So we can show support for our own news outlets by clicking on them. We can show that support by liking them. We can show that support by retweeting it and sharing it on social media outlets, which are as of right now free. And those people can then monetize it by whatever platform it's on. So we are in a position right now where we can share our own outlets in as many places as we can and help keep them afloat, because that's what's going to be necessary heading forward. Marcus.
Listen, look, you might see me and Mondale. If you're watching the show, you might see me and Mondale and Jason occasionally looking down, looking left and right, and not looking into the camera. That's because we are
because I'm wearing shorts and I'm not really wearing pants and haven't worn pants since coronavirus.
We are our own producers, right? And I mean, to be honest with you, when it comes down to a magazine or when it comes down to a live stream, if financially supported, what I mean by monetizing is being able to pay people for their time, being able to pay people, the people that need the experience and can say, hey, listen, I was an intern or I was a paid intern for Clickbaity, Political Thirst Trap. And I mean, yeah, I might be plugging us right now, but a lot of other entities like that. Also, yeah, I want that shiny shit. Excuse my language. I want all of that shiny stuff with buttons that I can mute Mondale because I want to have the microphone every now and then or whatever the back thing is, so I can just hit the mute button, shut up, and all that extra stuff. So that's what I want, but I want the same information given out of it. Sorry.
Marcus, you want what? Aha! Yo, I got that button, bro.
I know.
He's got the button. See, this is funny. I remember, what was it? It was like 10, 15 years ago when they finally, when they added color to the New York Times, because you remember New York Times was only black and white, and then they finally added color. A whole bunch of people had fits about it. Like, oh my God, I don't care. Look, I haven't cared about newspapers in a fundamental way since they took like the comic section out in the late 90s. Like I just, I primarily read newspapers online. I care about newspapers because I have friends and colleagues and loved ones who work in newspapers. But as a whole, and I think this is important because it spins into our second topic, here's the thing. We have to support actual news outlets that are producing news, whether that is entertainment news or sports news or something else like that, because if we don't, we will lack the information that we need to make wise choices. Now, what do I mean by wise choices? What's the most important choice in 2020? Well, what pair of sweatpants you're going to wear during coronavirus. That's key because none of us are leaving our homes. Could be which channel that you're going to turn to on Netflix, what movie. But it could also be who you're going to vote for president or mayor or governor. And as of right now, there is a disinformation war being pushed by this administration. And despite all of that, Donald Trump is still in the gutter. Latest polling shows that Donald Trump has a grand total of, everybody do it with your fingers, 3% of the African-American vote. Just 3. So to put this in context, that is less, that's almost a third of what he got in 2016, where he got 8% of the African-American vote. Those are pushing close to sort of John McCain numbers against Barack Obama. Joe Biden only has 81% of the African-American vote, which means that there's a surprising number of people who say they're undecided. But as of right now, Mondale, what do you think of those numbers? Trump at 3%, Joe Biden at 81. We're 5 months away from presidential election.
So let me say this real quick. A couple things about polls, and then also about like how we talk about them, right? So people who know me know that I don't really care about polls, especially when they're led and done by white people of black people, for a couple of reasons. Because black people have been lying to white people on polls since slavery. Let me explain to you what I believe the first unofficial poll was. It was the slave master going out to the field asking his slaves or his enslaved black bodies, are you happy here? Do you want to run away? Or do you want slavery to end? And that slave saying, no, master, I'm good. And then that slave master going back to his white friends in the South said, my slaves are extremely happy. I know, I just asked them today, right? That's what polls are to me. Like, I feel like black people have been lying for survival on polls since forever. And I know this to be true because my grandmother, who was probably the most holiest of holiest folk that I've ever met would never lie, but when a white person rang her phone, they wouldn't get real information. So I'm not really impressed with polls, but what I will say is it is amazing to me that Quinnipiac, the poll we're talking about is the Quinnipiac poll. People respect that poll. That poll is telling us what likely voters are doing. They polled 1,323 people. Black Male Voter Project has polled more Black men than that. I think we should start putting out polls about what Black men say is. If 1,300 people can tell you what the temperature of America is for a national poll or a presidential election, then definitely I can tell you what the temperature of Black men is in anything, about anything. And the last thing I'll say about Quinnipiac poll, and then Marcus, you can take away, is that I'm excited about this 3% because there's some people running around the world talking about Donald Trump gonna get 20% of the Black vote, especially Black men. And I'm laughing at them right now, like, who told you that lie? That poll that you did was flawed. Ain't no truth in it. Ain't no truth in it. The only thing that Donald Trump may do, because he's running against Joe Biden, is be able to keep Black men at home. And that won't be a fault of Donald Trump. That'd be a attack on the Democratic Party because of the way they campaign.
Marcus Farrell, what say you about the 3%?
Listen, I'm a very big Nas fan in the Nas versus Jay-Z battle. But if you don't believe you, you need more people. Look, man, it's very simple, right? Like that poll, first off, when you talk about modern polling, you still have issues with contacting.
Right.
Just getting in contact with actual voters. Second, I mean, listen, we're not even talking about people who are not even thinking about coming to the polls or not motivated to come into the polls. We're talking about the same people that voted basically in the primaries. So what are we doing, right? The conversation sort of needs to be what's going to motivate you to vote, right? I mean, and we'll talk about Klobuchar later and what the Biden campaign plans on doing, right? But to be honest with you, it's all a motivating factor. And I'm just not motivated by anyone. And here's another thing.
That's not true.
Well,
you're not motivated by anybody at the top of the ticket.
I am motivated by people bottom of the ticket, like Jamie Harrison. I will mention him one more time. That's my guy, right? And Jamie Harrison is going to bring me to the poll, and hopefully, guys, I can get Jamie to join us one day. But we'll talk about that sooner or later. Secondly, it's like this right here. Black men at this point. So in 2011, Alvin Brown was running for mayor of Jacksonville, Florida. Every single poll that came out during that year, especially during the primary, had Alvin Brown polling at 5th place, right? Election day comes around and Alvin Brown wins the whole thing on the primary election day. You know why? And I want to let you guys know something. Because of these same polls, the amount of money that the Democratic Party of the state of Florida decided that they weren't going to support Alvin Brown. They were going to support a moderate Republican instead of supporting Alvin Brown. That's a factual thing. Now, as soon as they got surprised election night, and by the way, that campaign, Mondale, shout out to Door Knocking and Grassroots, our campaign knocked on every black door 3 times, every single registered black door three different times, and pulled out as many people as we possibly can. So when I think about polls, I always go back to that, because who's doing the polling? Is it the black polling firm? Is it the polling firm that has a nuance and understands that, you know, you can't get in contact with people? How many cell phones did you really hit? How many responses did you get from those cell phones? How many people were home? We can go all day. All I'm saying is we don't believe you. You need more people.
Need more people.
So so what we're hearing then, what I'm hearing from my 2 friends and colleagues is these polls ain't loyal, and therefore they cannot be trusted to be consistent in where they go. Now, I will say this as someone who is not a believer in polls, but as somebody who is an academic, okay? There is no individual poll that I think anybody should get all that excited about. That's both working in journalism and that's being a political scientist. But what is important is trends. So if you see 3 or 4 polls that seem to be saying the same thing, that's when you start paying attention. Any one individual poll could be crazy. What I think is compelling, what I'm curious as to where you guys are on this, is to see Donald Trump consistently, not just losing to Joe Biden by 5 to 8%, whatever. We don't know how that's going to be. That's going to tighten up later on.
Right.
But Donald Trump's black numbers have consistently been under 5%.
Yeah,
that's huge to me.
Listen,
my poll,
Marcus, what's up with Marcus?
I gotta disagree with you completely. If we're talking about trends, let's look at presidential elections. Let's look at Hillary Clinton in 2016. Let's look at the consistent amount of polls that says she was going to win. And I'm talking about, I saw 8 polls straight, and I only saw 1 or 2 that said Donald Trump was actually going to pull this thing out. But when it came down to us feeding ourselves, and we were feeding ourselves, right? And we were making strategic decisions off of feeding ourselves. Now, we could talk about, we could literally, and everybody remembers how they had it in the bag, right? It was a 4-point victory.
No, I'm gonna let you finish, Marcus, but I'm gonna tell you why you're wrong. So
okay, well, and I mean that's an opinion thing, but I know what I saw, right? And we also saw reactions from. We also saw, most importantly, reactions from the campaign that basically tried to justify the polling numbers that came out. Hence, we're getting VP nominations that has nothing to do with the electorate. So as far as I'm
hold on, Jason, because let me say something real quick, Jason. Let me say something real quick. So here's my pushback on Marcus. And I know what he's talking about, the trends, but my thing about it is we should not be talking about Hillary Clinton's election, because that election should be considered an outlier, because that campaign lost that election. Those polls, I believe, were correct in talking about the temperature of people and where they stood. What happened?
Go ahead and mention Amy Klobuchar real quick. Can we go ahead and start?
We're getting there. We're getting there.
We're going there.
Here's the thing, Marcus. Here's the thing. Here's what I was talking about as far as trends and why this is important.
Hold on, Jason. Hold on, Jason. Let me finish it real quick. Okay. So Hillary Clinton, the reason I say Hillary Clinton shouldn't be considered in the trend conversation is simply because that campaign literally, those people took the fall off and were planning what job they were going to have when they were in the White House. They did not campaign in the South. They did not reach out. They thought they were going to use celebrities to win this election, i.e. what happened in Philadelphia on the night before election with Jay-Z and Beyonce, and we still had 300 black men stay at home on election day. People still believe that crowds equal votes, and it don't. So I will say this, the Hillary Clinton campaign lost that election. The polls, I don't think, were wrong up until the situation that happened with James Comey and Hillary Clinton's whole election. So all of those things have to be considered, especially when we're talking about in the context of what changes people's mind at the last minute when they're about to make a decision.
The biggest difference that people didn't want to pay attention to is exactly what Mondale was saying, is that nobody wanted to believe that James Comey's letter was going to make that much of a difference. That's what it boils down to. It literally was, the race was tightening, but nobody wanted to believe that James Comey doing what he did, which he still refuses to take responsibility for to this day, really ended up having that much of an effect on the polls. And the other thing is this, I know this because, hey, I wasn't making election predictions. I was on TV, I was doing work as I usually do, but I can say this, academics, pollsters, academic pollsters who were in individual states, they were talking. Not many, but there were a lot of political scientists who were saying, like, we could get a popular vote electoral college split. Now, there are a bunch of other quiet nerds like me. They weren't necessarily on the air, but I can name, I know half a dozen people, including some people who are at the University of Michigan who are like, we don't know. This could end up being a split. So it wasn't, when people say the polls told us this and the polls were wrong. No, the polls were right. Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote.
Jason, I was on the phone with you election night in 2016 all night long, bro. First off, nobody knew what the hell was going on. Second off, I'm not going to give any campaign a pass. And I'm not going to allow that conversation to happen. Not on my watch. Not
getting a pass.
And what I'm saying about that is, listen, we can talk about polls all we want to. We are neglecting the fact that the Hillary Clinton campaign, and it's starting to look like the Biden campaign, is thinking about doing the same route, decided to not motivate, get Tim Kaine, and miss black.
That's exactly what I said.
Literally. So, all right.
That's exactly what I said, though.
All right. So clearly, everybody's chomping at the everybody's chomping at the bit. So let's give a conversation about Amy Klobuchar.
Jason, hold on. Let me tell people about my sweater real quick, because I'm trolling somebody right now. It's one of my favorite people in the whole world. This sweater belonged to my niece when she was 13. I think she's like almost 20 now. Like, this is she left it in my car like 8-9 years ago, and I'm wearing her sweater. And she's watching tonight. And Clickbaity is our title, so I went to her Facebook page, and I was like, if you watch the show tonight, you're gonna see something you didn't expect. So I bet you she's like, why is that grown man, 41 years old, in my teenage sweater? I'm trolling you right now, little girl.
I don't know if it's really called trolling when you say it's trolling, but I guess it's still
it's definitely trolling.
And shout out to you for being able to fit a 13-year-old's outfit 9 years after the fact.
I'm just saying, bro. Saying that bike is real.
So clearly, everybody wants to get to this. So we'll go there because we're talking about motivation and we're talking about VPs and we're talking about Tim Kaine and everything else like that. So I'm gonna set the table for everybody and y'all can go in and make it a buffet. News broke today, or it was leaked today, and representatives from Amy Klobuchar's camp said to reporters, yes, Joe Biden has asked me to get ready for a vet. Okay, and everybody's flipping out about it. Oh my gosh, Joe is gonna da 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 da. Quiet as kept. Last night on Sirius XM on Dean Obadiah, okay, Representative Val Demings quietly said, "Yeah, I'm in the running too," which means she's been asked a question. And then three, my opinion. Wait to see what you guys have to say as I'm laying out the table and putting out silverware and everything else like that. This is the quintessential example of a trial balloon. In fact, for all the people who complain about Stacey Abrams, this to me is the thirsty move. This to me is somebody in the Klobuchar camp is worried that her position as the likely VP pick is slipping, so they had to leak it out that she's getting vetted. It is a trial balloon, and the response to it has been so negative that it's going to make that balloon sink like it's filled with lead. People who are worried about it now are really being silly because the fact that this leaked out, and we know that Keisha Lance Bottoms in Atlanta and Stacey Abrams and Elizabeth, we know these people are going to get vetted too. We know Maestro's getting vetted, but Klobuchar and her people probably put that out because they're feeling nervous. That's my take. Monday.
Jason, you know you're spot on. I don't even like you came at one of our listeners before for asking a question that they knew the answer to. You came at Marcus about that. You know the answer to that. Because here's what people weren't saying. Just like you said about Val, they also knew that three other people, they knew it. That campaign knew it. Yes. And it is a campaign to be vice president. They're just not talking about it the way they're talking about Stacey. Right. And it is literally four other people being vetted. And in any campaign with any sense about itself, will be vetting several people. So So it's so tragic that that to me was a desperate move. And when I posted it on my page today, I just said, I'm not saying ish. Because because to me, that was beyond tacky. That was like me, I don't know, that was trying to like what's the word I'm looking for? You're trying to big up yourself in a way. In a way that's going to backfire on you that a rookie wouldn't have made that mistake. Like, how are you how are you posting this? Why would you even say this out loud, knowing that like the world's going to come at you with all things, and this candidate is not ready? Her state wouldn't even. She probably couldn't even.
They didn't even pick her. Marcus.
They didn't pick her.
First, the releasing of the information was white privilege, right? Because there's a difference between Stacey Abrams actually actively putting herself out there and a campaign leaking something, thinking we need to change the narrative. And then also, y'all put yourself in a bad predicament, Klobuchar folks, because y'all gave us time to literally, you gave Marcus Bernard Farrell time to vet y'all and literally say, I don't want a crime bill ticket. Right. Yep. And I know for a fact that there's a lot of Biden people watching my Twitter page and reading every single word that I say. First, let's just assume that he decides to go with Klobuchar. The only thing I'm going to say is I told both of y'all this 3 weeks ago. As soon as he dropped that doggone lift every voice and sing platform when he didn't necessarily have to, that meant that they are trying to hedge their bets against a black woman just because they want to give y'all some peanuts to go ahead, take your little peanuts, take your little money for police, for community policing, and shut up and let us do what we got to do because we know we got y'all anyway. Now that's my.
Because I'm from Enfield, I need to step in and let people know that Marcus is not denigrating peanuts, because Enfield was the home of peanuts. So peanut farmers in Enfield know that Marcus is not talking trash.
Okay.
No denigration of peanuts, but
I'm not finished. I need to say just one more thing. If it is her, then you got to understand something. This is not the American public needs to understand something. The conversation around criminalization of black people, the conversation around policing of black people, the conversation about the crime bill, you're gonna have two candidates, both white, who are literally have a very horrible track record when it comes down to criminalization of black folks in America. And if you think some natural turnout is going to happen off of that, you're crazy. And even more importantly, if you think that some black person in the Trump campaign is not going to try to take complete advantage of that just to nullify our votes, then you're crazy. So as far as I'm concerned, bad decision all the way around. Hope it doesn't happen.
I'm
beyond hoping.
Amy Klobuchar. I don't think they're going to pick Amy Klobuchar.
They're not.
I think it's a desperation move. I don't think they're that stupid. I don't think they're that short-sighted. Right. Amy Klobuchar has no core base, no core constituency. There is not an Amy Klobuchar voter. Amy Klobuchar voters were just disappointed Biden voters in January.
It's not an Amy Klobuchar
vote for Pete.
Every white Midwestern woman is an Amy Klobuchar voter.
And no, they aren't. They aren't. Otherwise,
no.
In the race.
Actually, if we Marcus, you know every white woman is not an Amy Klobuchar voter, especially not those in the Midwest. They're Trump voters.
With Trump.
Right, yeah. They're Trump voters. And guess what else though? Joe Biden is the male version of Amy Klobuchar. That ticket together is nothing. That is beyond milquetoast. That is problematic on a level that no one praying presidential politics should be thinking about. And I think Amy Klobuchar was aware that they were not in the running in a serious way.
Exactly. So this is that leak. This is how this looks to me, right? Think of like a TV show or a movie or something else like that. And I had this conversation with somebody earlier today, and it was like, you know, we were talking about the movie Crazy Rich Asians, right? And then you see, I still haven't seen it yet, so I don't see it. But I was talking to somebody, and they were like, if you like Kim Jong, who's on Community and stuff like that, and she was talking about she had seen an interview with him, and he was like, I was screaming at my agent. I was like, yo, like every Asian actor in Hollywood is in this movie. Like, I don't care what role I got to play. I just want to roll in this movie. And it's like, when you're trying to get into a movie, when you're trying to get on that new TV series, you will drop whatever kind of hints you have in order to sort of force the narrative, right? I mean, what's her name? Oh gosh, the young actress who came out and said, oh yeah, I turned down a role in Black Panther because I thought that, you know, I didn't want colorism to come into play. Yeah, maybe, but she was also probably semi-campaigning for another position in a movie. All of this stuff is a form of campaigning. So there's no way, hell, if you want to be real conspiratorial about it, I wouldn't be surprised if some black people leak Amy Klobuchar because they were trying to convince Joe Biden that she would be a disaster. Like, fine.
Let me show him.
Let's throw her name out there.
Let me show him.
I just want to point out again that we can't have one conspiracy and not have another one.
I believe in all conspiracies.
Yeah, the timing of the release of that black plan was one thing. Klobuchar knows what she's doing. They all know what they're doing. But what I will say this is, how are we going to get over the sort of white supremacy, white consultant class, white democratic class of thinking if y'all think that they've changed their thought process? Let me let y'all know something. Obama won by accident to these same people. He beat Hillary Clinton in the Iowa primaries. They were not expecting that at all. So if you think that they've changed over and said that his major consultants, his major donors, which are not black people, there are a couple of them, but it's not a majority of black folks. If you think that these consultants are sitting here telling Joe Biden that he has to go, when you've already seen talking points from surrogates and senior advisors saying, well, we don't necessarily need a black person, pushing back against every single thing that black folks have already said all over Twitter and Instagram and the world, y'all are crazy.
Well, listen, what that surrogate you're talking about, because you didn't call his name, is Mr. Clyburn, who has dialed that back himself.
So like
It's more than Clyburn, but
it's more than Clyburn, but he's the one that that they were resting. Like Clyburn can say this, and then we can just go there. But what happened was the pushback from Clyburn, or the pushback that Clyburn received for that comment, let them know that it ain't gonna be that easy just to dismiss the idea of a black.
Plus, all these people out there saying, you know, it's like in a relationship or a marriage. It's like, it's not you, it's me. It's not about the money. Then you know it's about the money, right? If it's not you, it's me. Then I know you're really talking about me. All these people who are like, we don't have to pick somebody, but they're protesting too much.
Right.
That's not what you would be doing.
Exactly.
If you were trying to, if you were trying to pick you wouldn't be doing that because you're putting the message out there. Now, again, anything is possible. But if my plan is to pick a white person and not pick a black VP, then I don't have my surrogates out there trying to lay the groundwork for that. I just want that to hit and run. Because the more I talk about it in advance, the more I'm giving fuel for people to be angry. They're not going to be satisfied by this. They're going to be angry that it's talking about. Now, if he surprises us all and picks Maestro, am I saying it correctly? Maestro from New Mexico, or sorry, Nevada. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing this. Anyway, the senator from Nevada. I mean, if look, who Harry Reid wants. If Biden ends up picking her, that's great. That's fantastic. Whatever, fine, what he's going to do. And maybe he will surprise everybody. He's like, I'm not going to pick somebody black. I'm not going to pick somebody white. I'm going to pick somebody Latino. But at the end of the day.
You better pick Castro then.
Huh?
You better pick Castro then.
Agreed.
Well, but he can't pick Castro because he said he's going to pick a woman.
Right. So that point is, and it better be a black woman.
Yeah.
Or
yeah, exactly.
Or he's committed malpractice on the level of what Hillary Clinton did in 2016.
Hey, listen,
trust me,
Jason, I got a question for you because we can move on after this.
Mm-hmm.
So, since we're talking about it, top three. Who are the top three options for Biden right now? Jason Johnson.
Dylon, Kamala Harris. I mean, like, he's going to pick Kamala Harris is what I wrote. He's going to pick Kamala Harris because that's the easiest route to go. She's the one who fits in with his politics, and she's not going to blow up in his face. That's how this is going to play out. I could be wrong. It happens a good 2-3 times a year. But in this particular instance, I don't think he has another option because at his core, I actually think Joe Biden wants to win the presidency. And if he picks Amy Klobuchar, he is not winning the presidency. If he picks Gretchen Whitmer, he is not winning the presidency. The dark horse for me would be like if he picked Elizabeth Warren.
That ain't a dark horse. That's a smart choice.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of logic to picking Elizabeth Warren if you ask me. But I think that Joe Biden will go for, I think he's going to go for Kamala Harris.
My thing is, I don't have a top three, but I'm just thinking like politically. What's the best idea for Joe Biden's campaign? Joe Biden lacks executive experience. He's been in the Senate forever, and then he was a vice president, which is somebody that hops on a plane and say hello. Right. The guy who has, it's the quarterback, so this the backup quarterback with the clipboard. Exactly. So I think Lance Bottoms out of Atlanta is higher than people believe because of her experience. I think she's being vetted stronger than, because you know what she reminds me of? She reminds me of Hillary Clinton's vetting of Andrew Gillum, and people don't know how much vetting Hillary Clinton's campaign did of Andrew Gillum, considering him for VP, because of that experience and also who they bring with them. So I think a Southern Black woman can do that. Short of that, I still am thinking Stacey Abrams may be on that short list, but a smart choice, if you're not going to pick a Black woman, it should be Elizabeth Warren. Yeah. I mean, Warren would be the smartest decision if he's not going to be with it. But again, you talk about, and look, it's like you got to play games to win, not play games to not lose. You can't run a campaign based on what craziness Trump's going to come up with. But I will tell you this, if he picks a white woman, if Joe Biden picks a white woman as his VP, and it's not Elizabeth Warren, because I think you might be able to sell that, maybe it's iffy. But if he does not pick a Black woman as his VP, Donald Trump is going to smack him up and down the airwaves on that. That will be in every meme. That will be every dank meme, every single bot, every disaffected, Sanders, Yang, whatever supporters that may be out there, because Joe Biden will be appearing to go back on a promise that he made. And everybody who remembers said he was saying Black woman, but
get ready for it, Jason. It's happening.
Listen, I think it's a smart choice because I like how Warren gets on the president's skin. Oh, yeah. The way she gets under his skin, she can do things to him as VP that no other person could do. So I like that as a pick. Not to mention like the brain power that she brings when it comes to policies. And I think that's an important part, especially when we have in the time of progressives, and we have the number one progressive, so to say, Bernie Sanders, telling people to pipe down. So here's the thing with this, and we'll close with saying,
No promises made, no Snickers bars gambled, no money on the table. Mondale says there's different possibilities. Marcus seems to be preparing us, or he seems to want to prepare us for some sort of massive disappointment. I'm saying I'm banking on Joe Biden wants to win, and if you want to win, you got to pick somebody black.
When has Black America never been disappointed?
Disappointed all the time. Wait a minute, but let's be clear, Marcus. Before we go to the next topic, let's be clear. Let's be clear about this. I'm not saying that black people would be particularly excited about Senator Harris. I'm saying that's who they'll probably pick. Picking Senator Harris, given what her polling was with the black community, I mean, she's not a huge galvanizing force for regular run-of-the-mill black people. She's a favorite of black influencers, and maybe they have more sway this time because we're not going to have as much door-to-door, retail politics going on. But let's be clear, I'm not saying that Senator Harris is a selection because she's going to create some groundswell of African-American voters. I don't think that's going to happen with her. But I do think that Joe Biden is smart enough to know that if he doesn't pick somebody like her, it is going to blow up in his face. Now, that being said, I think it's interesting because when we were talking about this earlier today, there are different things that happen in campaign season that I think people sometimes underestimate the importance of. One of which is how you deal with losing. And when we had the show on Tuesday, I asked Dr. Cornel West, I said, hey, why do you think Bernie Sanders failed to get the nomination, right? And he gave, I thought, a really, really good answer, a very passionate answer. So what came out in the news today is that Bernie Sanders, who will not be the Democratic nominee, but who does have a decent number of delegates, has told his delegates / supporters and everything else like that they need to calm down and get in line. I have lots of thoughts on this, some of which I'm going to share. But before I say anything, I'm going to lay it out to our boy Marcus Farrell, who has a deep and long and intimate relationship with all things Sanders.
Hey, listen, first off, 2016, in the summertime of 2016, Jason Johnson and I were walking around the Democratic convention in Philadelphia. And when we walked in,
I didn't see y'all.
We walked in during, you didn't really even know me. I was just another Negro at that point.
I did not know at that point. I'd only known Marcus for a couple months. He was still trying to make up for Mark Weaver dissing all those black media people.
Jeff Weaver, yeah.
Jeff Weaver. Sorry. You can get his name wrong. Don't be sorry. Who cares?
Yeah,
I mean, it happened.
Right. But here's the thing. When we got to the convention, when we walked into the convention, you remember the protest, Nina Turner, was going on outside. And people were walking outside as we were walking in. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Well, what was going on at that point was the dissing and the dismissal of a whole movement from the Democratic Party. No matter what anybody says, the party was completely against Sanders people in 2016. They didn't want to hear them. They brought in loud ass sound machines to drown out their boos. They canceled people who were progressive Bernie supporters from the doggone stage so they couldn't speak. So it wasn't a consolidation of the party, that it was the party versus anybody who supported Bernie. And I was walking around the floor and looked like a loose pit bull, as Jamie Foxx said. So here's what I will say. Bernie is trying his hardest to avoid that, but Bernie has gone a step too far. And that's the problem with some white folks or some people when they're trying to sort of integrate within the establishment. Somebody says, well, this is what we want. We want no dissent from any of your delegates. We don't want any complaints from any of the delegates. We don't want personal assaults from any of your delegates. We don't want negative tweets and negative social media from any of your delegates about Joe Biden. Here's the problem. It's America, people. And even more importantly, you don't represent Bernie Sanders as a Bernie Sanders delegate. You represent your district as a Bernie Sanders delegate, meaning that you don't necessarily have to go by anything that Bernie Sanders says. You're still going to go to Philadelphia as a delegate if you've already been properly voted in. So it really doesn't matter what Bernie Sanders says. And it's just a thing to make sure that Bernie is cool with the right people. But at the end of the day, all I have to say is they are who they say they are.
So I'm going to push back on Brother Marcus for a little bit and gently, because what he's saying is true. Like, as a delegate, you elected by people in your district, but I think Bernie's doing something else. and it's more cynical and sinister than that. I think Bernie is giving cover to his high profile surrogates. Prime example, on this week, AOC made news because she said there's space in the, let me set the context. AOC is a part of Joe Biden's climate change table policy. She's a co-chair of it. And she said there's absolutely is a strong ass word when we're talking about policy. She says there's absolutely space for nuclear energy in the Green New Deal. Yeah, that's exactly.
Okay, I hadn't heard that.
Okay, so my thing is, Bernie Sanders saying pipe down to his delegates it's not basically telling people to get in line by Joe Biden. It's telling people not to parachute away from AOC and other people that are going to be saying things like that. To say that there's absolute space in the Green New Deal for nuclear energy is to say there is no Green New Deal. There's nothing new about nuclear energy. It is nasty. It is horrible for the environment, especially if you live in one of the communities where you're breathing this stuff in and living next to it. So I think Bernie Sanders coming out saying that had very little to do with Joe Biden and more to do with cover for people that were high profile surrogates that are looking for positions in Joe Biden's administration.
Hey Jason, one last thing, man. I personally spent, and most Bernie Sanders supporters personally spent, a massive amount of time trying to dispel the argument that it wasn't Bernie Sanders' fault that Hillary Clinton lost, right? Now, Bernie might be going into 2020 general election thinking, man, everybody blamed me for Trump the first time, so let me go ahead and fall in line. Now, let me tell you something. I'll be the first to say it. The statement that he made about telling his supporters to not criticize when he spent a whole 5.5 years criticizing the same type of people is the most hypocritical thing that you could possibly say. So that means that blatantly he has decided that I am not going to get blamed for this. I am blatantly going to talk these talking points that somebody in the Biden campaign gave me. And guess what? When y'all lose, it might be crazy like a fox. When y'all lose, y'all can't blame progressives no more. You have to blame yourself.
But when progressives are talking about nuclear energy, that's scary to me.
This is my Birdman, because I'm so excited about this. I have so many things I want to say. So many things I want to say. So I'm going to, if you all will allow me, to say a couple of things.
Have fun.
Number one, Bernie Sanders is doing something now that I don't know, maybe he should have done months ago, which is tell people that if you're interested in defeating a fascist, that your individual policy needs might not be as important as the overall unity we need to get rid of this person. There are times to fight these battles. He's doing it now. He probably should have said it 5 or 6 months ago. That's the first thing. The second thing is, quite frankly, I don't care, because he lost. And he lost because he didn't listen to people like Marcus. Ha! Got you. Got you. I was setting you up for that. Look, and I'm all kidding aside. Look, I've never understood the extended mourning period and coddling and handkerchiefs that need to be given to people when their candidates don't win in a primary. Black people have had to deal with that our whole lives. The candidates we like almost never make it, right? So, I remember this in 2008, where he had all those Hillary people who were like, oh my God, I don't know, Barack Obama. Hillary lost, deal with it, get over it, move on with your life. The fact that Bernie Sanders is behaving like a responsible politician, okay, that's fine, that's cool. I mean, that's to be expected one way or another. But dude, you lost. This is what happens. And quite frankly, had you been delivering this message all along, you wouldn't be in a position where you have to tell people this now. And quite frankly, similar to what you guys say, I don't even know if I entirely agree. Because if you don't like Joe Biden, then you don't like Joe Biden. If you don't like anybody other than Bernie Sanders, you have a right to not like somebody other than Bernie Sanders. If you think that Joe Biden will not be a good president, and the only person who would be a good president is Bernie Sanders, you have a right to feel that way. Many people may disagree. Many people may characterize that in a negative way, but you have a right to do it. I think it's kind of silly for him to say that now after the kind of campaign that we saw for the last 5 or 6 months.
Well, here's what I would say, though. In his defense, and I don't defend Bernie Sanders often. I don't defend white men often at all. What I will say, though, is in his defense, he has always been consistent about whoever the Democratic nominee is, he will support.
Oh, yeah. He has been. Yeah. No question about that. No question about that. But what I'm saying is that, like, you know, I don't give him or anybody else a tremendous amount of credit for recognizing what reality is. Like, dude, you lost. So what are you going to do? You're going to tell your people to fight and resist to the point where it's not really a possibility anymore? I didn't feel that way about Hillary Clinton in 2008. I don't feel that way about anybody now. When you lose, you lose, and you're supposed to be a team player. Otherwise, you never cared about the rules to begin with.
Jason, we got to be a little nuanced. And what I mean by that is I agree with you in some senses, but I also want to say that the Biden campaign, when it comes down to progressives, the Biden campaign, they're supposed to be giving out a little bit, right? And they call themselves doing that, right? They're supposed to be giving out a little bit more of a progressive platform, right? But the progressives that I know who are hardcore about like Medicare for all, especially during COVID 2019 and college for all, right? Like Biden is doing certain things, but Medicare for 60, that's a problem, right? And what Bernie is basically saying to some people is, you know what? It's Medicare for 60, deal with it, show up and support me in the convention or support Joe Biden anyway. So we can't go away from what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? You can't expect people to be like, I'm done. I'm not going to say anything just because Bernie, who is an insider in DC politics, no matter what anyone says,
right,
is saying, hey, listen, this is what we have to do to defeat a fascist. Because at some point, if he already has complete buy-in, Joe Biden has complete buy-in from Bernie Sanders, then where do the push to the left policies come from, even in the victory? And
as a person who loves, I don't love a lot of TV. I already told you I'm upset that entertainment beat out education when it came to TV.
I love my MTV.
I have to bring in cartoons at this point, not for the sake to make people laugh, but just for education purpose. Cartoons usually aren't. The history of cartoons aren't usually educational. They're usually racist. Actually, most of the cartoons we watched as kids had racist origins or something close to them. But there was this one cartoon that Marcus' statement made me think of. It's called Schoolhouse Rock, How a Bill Becomes Law. You guys remember that little piece of paper dancing around?
Yes. I'm just a
bill.
Yes, that one, Marcus. The reason I thought of that is because, Marcus, people don't need listen, if we're concerned with policy and Medicaid for all, we don't need Joe Biden to be on board. We just need to win the Senate and keep the House, and we can force his hand. You know what I'm saying? So if the problem is this whole section of our show, this whole session of our show is carrying on in a manner that is, symbiotic or beneficial to the national narrative that presidential campaigns are the sexiest campaign. We talk about presidential politics a lot. I am one who believes that presidential campaigns are garbage as it pertains to what's more influential and what hits people's lives immediately. So what I'm saying is if we elevated local elections, sheriff, DAs, state level elections, mayors, and also governors, lieutenant governors, secretary of states, and Senate races that we can explain to people that there's no electoral college behind it. It's just your vote, one vote, one vote. So if we could do that and we start talking about those elections in real ways, then we could take away from some of this idea like that we need Joe Biden to be on our page for Medicaid for all. Because if we had a Senate and if we had a Democratic Senate, Democratic controlled House, we could get what we want, especially if it's progressives occupying those seats.
So I'm happy to say, and this will lead us into our final, our sort of fun topic of the night. Mondale sort of sets us up for our final topic, which again is a surprise because these guys don't know what we're about to talk about. But I hope they know. If they don't know, I'm offended. That's a hint. Marcus and Mondale have been talking about in their discussion of Sanders and in their discussion of Biden, what they're really talking about is a party that is sometimes full of some, come on, y'all, you know what I'm saying. I see Marcus, he knows what I'm saying. Today is a very important day, especially for Black men like ourselves.
Hey,
because today is what, my brothers?
Biggie.
It's Biggie Day.
Hey.
There we go. It is Biggie's birthday.
Good week for us this week. Is it not a good week? Tuesday was Malcolm X Day.
Malcolm X. Today is Biggie's birthday. So what I'm gonna ask everybody to do is you got to tell me one or two of your favorite Biggie lyrics, or like a friend, or like a memory to come from it. Just tell me. Just whoever. Just jump. What's your favorite Biggie lyric? You only have your favorite Biggie.
Like the week from the opsa, leap hard to speak on Brooklyn streets. It's on that bickering beef. I can see sweat trickling down your cheek. Your heartbeat sound like Sasquatch beat. That's the #1 verse of all time.
That's a dope verse.
And the #2 verse, it's not even a verse, it's a story. My first time leaving Tallahassee, Florida to actually go out of town on my own was for a Biggie Smalls concert in 95. I was in 11th grade and we went to see Biggie down in Panama City Beach, and MTV was there. And I couldn't get in because Club La Vila, I think he was at Club La Vila and it was 21 and above, but I heard him. And he was like, what, 19, 18, 20, 21 himself at that time. But it just hearing him and going down there and experiencing it and being like, man, Biggie's that joint. Yeah. That was my favorite. And of course, my worst was the moment I was in boot camp when I heard that he passed away. So I couldn't mourn with my friends because I had to do push-ups.
So my favorite lyric is more motivational than thugged out than Marcus just offered us. It's just that you know very well who you are. Don't let them hold you down. Reach for the stars. That lyric is powerful to me because it's motivation, and it's also like I'm from the orange clay dirt and the sand dirt of Enfield, North Carolina. And for me to be doing what I do in spaces that I'm in, every day I look in the mirror and be like, boy, you from Enfield, North Carolina. But what I want to tell you, my most memorable moment of Biggie Small is kind of similar to what Marcus is talking about, in that I was in basic training when Biggie died. When we got the news, I was actually at, this is also related to Marcus because he's a Navy corpsman. I was at the dentist, at the Navy dentist on Paris Island, South Carolina, Marine Corps depot, training depot for all Marine Corps recruits on the East Coast. And I was actually getting my teeth, something done to my teeth. And it came across the news that Biggie Smalls had been murdered. So when I went back to the barracks, I shared on the news all the Black people. And it was 100, at that time it was 103 of us. We graduated 33, but I think it was 6 Black people. So I found a way to like whisper it and nobody believed me. Then like a week later, the letters started coming into people, or a couple of days later, and people like, yo, Biggie really is dead. And like brothers were literally in basic training. We had an hour before we went to bed. It was supposed to be letter writing time. Nobody wrote letters that time. When everybody realized that Biggie really was dead, we all sat down in the corner and had like this kumbaya about Biggie Smalls and what he meant to us, and how we thought at the time he was the greatest MC of all time. So, I mean, I don't feel that way right now, but I definitely, I remember that, like, about Biggie. That's like my most memorable moment about Biggie.
Jason, just one sentence. And I see some ladies tonight that should be having my baby.
Baby.
Come on, man.
Mine is, I was a terrorist since the public school era.
Hey.
That is my line. Because that hit me on multiple layers, right? Like, it's the opening to Party and Bullshit, but
he said, hold on. He said, yo, Big. Said,
I mean, it's like everything about that song and everything about that lyric, because he's not just talking about, as somebody who, surprising as it may be for people to know, like, I'm a kid who got in a lot of trouble in elementary school.
That is surprising. I mean, I got a lot of trouble as a kid. That's what is that, Marcus?
All the souvenirs.
What is that?
That's Biggie. He's got Biggie Funko Pops.
What are Funko Pops?
You know what, Mark? You know what, Mondale?
Another episode.
That's a whole other episode. You're gonna chill to the next episode. So, but that line, it's not just about who it was, a kid like me, but it was also like you know, the school to prison pipeline, the abuse of young Black boys and girls in school. When he says I was a terrorist since the public school era, that always hit me as like, I was a terror the moment I went to school. It didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter how smart I was. It didn't matter what my parents were. I was a terror to the system the moment I got in that system. That's how that lyric always hit me. And then secondarily, growing up where I did, growing up first in Nebraska and then like the suburbs of DC or whatever it is, when you heard that kind of music, you're growing up in these majority white suburbs, that was your fantasy of this like Black experience that you had seen in movies that you had never had before. Like you envisioned going into the party that smelled like smoke and people were grinding in the bed, because you didn't see that growing up in the suburbs like I did. So like it was always this dream of like, one day I'm gonna go into a party, I'm gonna go into the Q party, I'm gonna go into the campus party, and they're gonna be playing this, and that's gonna be like the moment where I have arrived. I've experienced a kind of Blackness that my little suburban background had not allowed me to have. So that and yeah.
And if you was an infield, bro, I would have made sure that you experienced that. We used to have parties. My homeboy, we had, for some reason, when I was 15 years old, it was like 4 or 5 of us living in this 3-bedroom house with no adults, no supervision. We all moved in. We controlled our own day, and we used to have these parties at this house on Bugsby Drive, and we used to party like crazy. And we was in this model, Marcus. But I don't smoke marijuana.
What's going on?
Hey,
I like it here.
Marcus,
it's the 10-week commandments.
That was dry snitching, Marcus. So, but Jason, I hear what you're saying, and I think Biggie represented something clean about, like, even though like people may not know, like, if Biggie's heritage, his mother spoke about him, like Biggie chose that lifestyle. She made sure that he had food, you know what I'm saying, his entire life. But him speaking it the way he did, because he's an artist, a lyricist, a poet, our type of poet, was not like fake or fraud, because you know he chose that lifestyle even though he didn't have to. And when he chose it all the way. And people don't know it. Biggie used to hustle in Raleigh, North Carolina, and actually he had a song on the radio, and Diddy had to come get him because he was down there slanging. And so Biggie is New York, yeah, but he made some of his money in the Carolinas.
Hey, Mondale, I want to just say like two things.
You want to interrupt a North Carolina story?
Yeah, no.
Hey, is it a P.D. Pablo story? That's the only North Carolina rapper I know.
I mean, really? Because J. Cole happens to be one of the best rappers ever.
Biggie started, I mean, you can say Rakim, but Biggie basically started the current era of good rapping, right? And what I mean by that is, like, to me, Biggie brought in all the flavor, all the puns, all the
he was witty as hell. I mean, he was funny.
All the witty flow, right? Yeah. He did, like, to me, he's one of the first ones that actually like brought it mainstream. And if you look at his early flows when he was freestyling, he was still rapping early 90s, late 80s. And then when he got on the radio, it became Jay-Z right now. When it got on the, when it got on the radio, it became Nas right now. Like, well, not Nas, but it became the MCs right now that aren't like, So that's
he told the story about Jay-Z, Nas, and all of those guys, like how they were pulling on his sleeve.
I just want to point out that the whole West Coast, East Coast beef. Before Biggie died, I want to just make sure that everybody understands he was the coolest one out of all of them. Biggie wasn't the person trying to amplify anything. Biggie was like, yo, son, let's just get some money, son. Like, let's just do something. And it's one of these cases where I think the industry kind of killed Biggie more than Biggie killed Biggie, if that makes any sense. Because
makes a lot of sense.
They had to have a victim to Pac's dying, right? And I mean, we can go into the conspiracy theories, and some of them have been proven and some of them haven't. But what I do know is that Biggie wasn't trying to start beef with Pac. Biggie made one line about Pac that I can remember. Get it? Tupac. And basically he just said, my wife had sex with Tupac Shakur. And
no, that's not true. I love Biggie, but he also made Who Shot You?
Yeah. I mean, I will say this, and at some point, and we'll have to talk about this in production. I'm gonna tell you all the story, the conspiracy theory I was told about Pac. I might have told you this, Marcus, about what happened to Pac, why he was killed. we'll have to figure out some legal things and we can talk about that.
No, we don't even need to figure out anything legal. Just go listen to MC8 on YouTube tell you why Pac was killed. And ain't nobody really the MC8 on that situation because he was Pac's homeboy, but he also told you why Pac got killed. I mean, like, so you should really, everybody should take time, go listen to that 13, 14-minute interview of MC8 explaining exactly why Pac got killed.
Who's interviewing? Is it Combat Jack? Who's interviewing?
I mean, you don't even know because that person's not even on camera. It's just MC8 talking to the question. But it's so powerful. Listen to MC8 tell the story.
It's probably, I think it's Vlad.
Marcus, stop trying to big up Vlad. You
like I said, it's like I said, it's either Combat Jack or it's Vlad. Anyway, thank you all so much tonight. Who's got our final word tonight? I think it's you, Marcus.
No, it's Biggie.
Oh.
And I know you ain't no little boy no more.
They
But
want
you'll
some
always
booze.
be my baby. It seems like only yesterday I was holding you in my arms. Now look at you now, big one. But I worry about you.
I feel like we should have liquor.
I worry about you all the time.
I worry about you all the time. That's a for real sentence from Black mothers.
Baby, that ain't nothing but trouble. I always taught you that you could have whatever you dream. Well, I want you to hold on to that dream, baby. Hold on to it real tight. Because the sky's the limit.
Trap squad, 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 trap squad. Hey, clickbaity political. Yeah, thirst trap, trap squad, squirrel squad. Our mission is critical to speak the truth to the masses. We here for the fight. We ain't started, but we here to finish it. Sick and tired of seeing the privilege. Take advantage of the weak and the innocent. So we let our voice be heard. Every single weeknight, unapologetic. Black people, despite this white supremacist system that we live through on a daily, we still throwing up those acorns cause we represent clickbaity. Trap squad, trap squad, trap squad. Let me hear ya. Trap squad, trap squad. Throw those squirrels up if you with it. Trap squad, trap squad. Yeah, I see you, yeah, I see you. Trap squad, trap squad. Trap squad, ThirstTrap. Trap squad, trap squad. Trap squad. Let me hear ya. Trap squad, trap squad. Throw those squirrels up if you with it. Trap squad, trap squad. Yeah, I see you, yeah, I see you. Trap squad, trap squad. Trap squad, ThirstTrap. Trap squad, trap squad, trap squad. Trap squad, 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 trap squad. Hey, clickbaity political. Yeah, thirst trap, trap squad, squirrel squad. Our mission is critical to speak the truth to the masses. We here for the fight. We ain't started, but we here to finish it. Sick and tired of seeing the privilege. Take advantage of the weak and the innocent. So we let our voice be heard. Every single weeknight, unapologetic. Black people, despite this white supremacist system that we live through on a daily, we still throwing up those acorns cause we represent clickbaity. Trap squad, trap squad, trap squad. Let me hear ya. Trap squad, trap squad. Throw those squirrels up if you with it. Trap squad, trap squad. Yeah, I see you, yeah, I see you. Trap squad, trap squad. Trap squad, ThirstTrap. Trap squad, trap squad. Trap squad. Let me hear ya. Trap squad, trap squad. Throw those squirrels up if you with it. Trap squad, trap squad. Yeah, I see you, yeah, I see you. Trap squad, trap squad. Trap squad, ThirstTrap. Trap squad, trap squad, trap squad, trap squad.